You look legit terrifying.
I got my hair
Not your
slicked back.
looks.
Listen, I look like, you know what's so funny is I had a client yesterday tell me that, because I always like to check in. I think it's important to do that when we're working with clients. Like, hey, is this working for you? Because I think in that dynamic, the same with like employees and
It's a power
employer, there's a
dynamic.
power dynamic. And I
Yes.
think that sometimes clients are not, I don't know if you've been stuck in this. We talked about the nail lady the last time. Clients sometimes aren't going to tell you if you're not
No,
working as
they're
their
not gonna tell
therapist, they're
you.
not going to tell you. They will suffer through sessions or they'll ghost you. They will just stop showing up.
Yes.
So I was having this conversation and I said, hey, just want to check in. Like, I do a lot of adjunct EMDR work with clients, so they have a primary therapist that they keep, and I always say, like, when you're ready to go back to them, that's great. That means our work here is done. You're not gonna offend me if you're done with the work. So I check in with them and they go, "Honestly, the first time I saw you, you look just like a teacher that I used to have in high school, and she was really mean, and I thought, like, you were gonna be really mean." And I think depending on how I do my hair and, like, how I dress, like, I do look like more of a
Either
bitch than
softer, yeah,
I
softer,
mean,
yeah.
right now, it's pretty harsh. It's pretty we mean business today, and sometimes you
We
have to dress like that because sometimes you have to hype yourself up in the morning like, "We're gonna get shit done today."
Let's go back to what I did this morning. I dunked my face in an ice bath 7 times because Paris Hilton said she doesn't do Botox and that's part of her regimen.
First of all, Paris Hilton's skin looks amazing. I don't believe she doesn't do
Amazing.
something. Also, Paris Hilton has a cryotherapy chamber and a
Well,
hyperbaric
that's what
chamber in her
well,
house.
that's
So,
what she talked about.
yeah,
So the ice
so,
baths might not get us too far, but I did what I could do, which was the free portion of
I
her
mean, your skin looks
skincare regimen.
amazing.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
it tightens it up, tightens the pores up, I get that.
Yeah.
I'm not doing that. That's what I'm not doing.
Why? I think you might like it. I actually liked it afterwards. I was like, "Okay, I could do this again." And I did it 7 times, so I'm gonna work my way up to more.
How many times does she do it?
She does it on and off for 10 minutes, and I did it on and off for maybe 2.
Okay, so I would say the face I could probably do and manage. I tried doing the cold showers. I've done ice baths before. I've actually
No, it's
seen
just to depuff my face. I can use the sauna for everything else. I'm not getting into a cold ice bath.
I need
It's a
warmth.
no.
I run
Me
a
too.
heater in my office year round. So
That's
there's
how
no
yeah,
cold thing.
that's how
So
my neighbor is too. She's the same way. She's a clinician too. I don't know what that says about you guys, but I don't know.
it's been ever since I lost weight. I
Mm,
can't and I have thyroid autoimmune stuff, so I feel like I just run cold all the time anyway.
mhm.
Anyway, so Molly actually was saying that I look scared because she's very nervous because I have a surprise topic that we're talking about today. It's not
Yeah.
scary.
We were supposed to do an interview, and we
We
rescheduled it,
realized.
and so here we are, and Jill said, "What do you wanna talk about today on the podcast?" And I said, "Why don't we do some, like, rapid fire questions?" And she then said nothing, and then this morning said, "Surprise topic."
Surprise
So,
topic.
here we are. Let's get into it. Welcome back, guys.
So I thought it would be really I've been almost talking to myself as if I am one of my clients lately. Which
Okay.
sometimes I feel like we have to do. Sometimes we have to remind ourselves we got to get back to basics. Oh, Molly's already taking deep breaths. This is good. This is good that she's taking deep breaths.
I feel like we're
So,
really aligned on this. Okay, keep
are
going.
we?
I'm feeling good about this.
Are
Let's
we in
go.
the same place? So, what came up for me is I'm an EMDR therapist. I don't typically talk about like my clinical work that I do, but for those that don't know, EMDR stands for eye movement desensitization reprocessing, which is essentially a modality of therapy that you use. It's a gold standard for trauma treatment. I would also say, though, that it is a gold standard for reorganizing your belief system about yourself. So, negative cognitions about yourself. For example, I'm not good enough. I can't trust people. I'm unsafe. These like negative beliefs that come up from a lot of times from trauma, but sometimes like the things that they come from aren't these like massive trauma moments. Sometimes it's just like stuff that happens in childhood that like really is emotionally jarring for us, whatever. So one of the things that we teach to our clients in EMDR is the window of tolerance, which is essentially like your optimal zone for functioning. And so in teaching this to my clients this week, I had this profound moment, light bulb moment that I've been operating outside of my window of tolerance
For how long?
at least 2.5 weeks.
Whoa.
And
Okay.
and so well, I will say like riding the edge, like it's not always outside. And I'll
Yeah.
explain this a little bit more, but it goes back to, and I teach this a lot to my staff. I talk about this a lot with, fellow entrepreneurs. Like we have to stay steady, like emotionally steady. Some of the worst bosses you've probably had, if you're listening to me right now, like if you think about it, it's probably the ones that were unpredictable. They're emotionally unstable in some form or fashion. They're all over the place. They're reactive to things. That's just not a good way for a leader to operate. A leader you
Mhm.
want to have like, we're human, we're going to have
Steady
ups and
state.
downs,
A
but you don't
little
want to be
steady
like
state.
this. You don't want to be like up
Totally.
and down.
Yes.
So I thought about this more, and like how this came up for me is we had a staff retreat where we had some Reiki done. We did a sound healing. Like it was really about grounding. It wasn't about the work. It wasn't really about team building necessarily, but it was about like checking in with ourselves. And are we practicing what we're preaching? In other words, is the stuff we're saying to our clients, and in my case, is the stuff I'm saying to my staff, am I doing that myself? The answer was I was treading water for the past few weeks. That's where I've been. So we'll back up a little bit. Window of tolerance, essentially, when you're in that window, which like there's highs and lows in that, there's still variation, but it means that like that's where you're able to use your coping skills. That's where you're able to function. You're present, you're able to enjoy your family, you're able to hold conversations, you're able to think creatively. Like that's the zone. Doesn't mean that you don't have painful emotions or that you can still be stressed, but like you're able to still function. Outside of that, on the high end would be hyper arousal, which would be look like where you're intensely angry, you are feeling anxious, you may have a panic attack. That is where like you're in fight or flight mode. And then on the bottom is hypoarousal, where you're the freeze mode, where you're kind of stuck, you're frozen, you can't make decisions, you're paralyzed, you feel like you're depressed, sleeping a lot, all that stuff. I don't really identify with being like in either one of those extreme states most often, but I think this one crept up on me.
Well, it's interesting that we're talking about this for a couple reasons. One is when we go through changes or life changes or even seasonal changes at times, I feel as though our system needs a reset in some fashion, right? And so there have been a lot of season changes for you, both actual season changes as well as season changes in your business. What I'll say about being able to relate to that is we're typically the last to recognize it. And the reason being is that it works. It helps us function in a way to get things done and to keep moving forward. And so it's not that I become less productive in those moments, it's more that I become less present. And there's a difference.
That is the problem that I've noticed, which
Right.
in seasons, you know, as an entrepreneur, there are seasons where, yeah, I gotta sacrifice my time. And I think that's I don't think it's just an entrepreneur. I just think that's just career in general and or life, right? You have to sacrifice something to get something else sometimes. Like there's a trade-off. Um, and there have been seasons over the last however many years of my career where like I've had to sacrifice. I mean, even when I was in agency work, I used to get up at 3, 3:30 in the morning, and I would go and supervise my overnight staff at 5 in the morning before they
Uh-huh.
clocked out.
Uh-huh.
I went on call when I got called about clients who were unable to be de-escalated in the middle of the night. I got dressed and went into the office. Like, so like there was sacrifice, and that was with a 6-month-old at home. So
Mhm.
there was sacrifice along the way anyway, but I think, you know what, it goes back. At first I was like, I want to talk about boundaries, but in my time management, but it's like it's not really about that. What it's about is not being present with like how I'm processing everything and how I'm managing everything, because I think you and I both are the same where we can manage a lot of stress. And when I say
Mhm.
that, like that's just we can work in fast-paced environments, we can multitask, we can, put out fires, like we come from those backgrounds.
There's not much that there's a crisis, right? So there's not
No.
much about our day-to-day today that looks like a
No.
crisis. So I think when you have that comparison and you're sitting in a space today and I'm looking at what may be someone else's crisis, I'm sitting on the other side and saying that feels really low level crisis to me. Maybe kind of tipping, the scale of maybe an emergency, but crisis is something different. Crisis is for me, when I think about the term crisis, and I think you do too, someone's safety is at risk. s- Pretty much that's it. Like someone's safety is at risk. That's
Like, it needs
crisis
to be
level.
handled now, or
Right.
there's, like, a
Yeah,
threatened life situation, l life or
exactly.
safety.
So anything kind of under that for me is doesn't need to be handled now, doesn't need to be handled by me, and doesn't need to be handled, in this moment, essentially, right?
So
So,
that's a really good example that you just brought up, though, because when you're outside of your window of tolerance, what happens is, and this again, I think creeps up when we are under extreme amounts of stress or more than usual or whatever, things start to feel like they may kill us.
yes, okay, so let's give some examples. Go ahead.
That we may break under this pressure at this point. Like, this is now a crisis in my head, although it's actually not. So I will tell you that when I noticed that I was in that state, going back to the retreat, is when I had this day where the phone was off, didn't check my email. I was off for the day. Like, the team was handling everything else. I'm with one of my teams, the other team's handling stuff. There was such a profound shift, and to the point where, like, people afterwards were like, "You sound so calm right now." And I was like, "I feel calm," which I think it was just me returning to my window of tolerance, because
Returning to self.
I had been in this state of, like, hyperarousal for so long that it just became, like, typical.
Well, how
Um
about when that was essentially my baseline? I won't speak for you, but
Oh, totally mine.
there
I
has
worked
been
in crisis. That was my job. I worked
just
in
baseline
crisis
hyperarousal,
residential. Yeah.
right? And hyperarousal just means really that you're trying to survive, right? You're trying to survive and be productive in the same sentence. And there is no ability to not see the chain of events, right? So all I would see essentially is this leads to this, leads to this, leads to this. So everything was in the future. Really not much reflection in the past, to be quite honest, when I was in that. Like I maybe a
No,
little
that
bit of
makes
a
sense
glance in
though.
the rear view, but it was always about what is 10 miles ahead.
Yeah, because you're anxious. Because that's fight or flight. That's you're anticipating what's happening. When you're in freeze, a lot of times, and you're depressed, a lot of times you're looking at the past.
Yeah.
Regret, shame, all that
I don't
stuff. So
have
like
that
that,
really. I probably should have more of that.
I don't either, honestly. And
I
to
don't.
be fair, what kicked this off is I had an intense emotional explosion with my husband. Um, and honestly, it scared me to the point where I was like, wow, like, I haven't flown off the handle like this. I mean, I think everybody has those moments, and I've sat across from clients who
Mhm.
have maybe shame or guilt about flipping out, especially with their children. And it's like, listen, if you think that we have all the answers because we're therapists, and that's all nice, but when you're in your own home with your own family, with your own emotional triggers, like, all that stuff goes out the window. Now, if it's
Absolutely.
happening all the time and regularly,
Yeah,
you should probably get some help with that. But
sure.
it goes back to what I kind of talk to my staff about and what I talk to, other clinicians about, and we can only help clients as much as we help ourselves. And for me, that moment obviously not in the moment, because in the moment, I feel like my nervous system needed to freak out in order to kind of, like, get back to some, like to regulate a little bit. Was
Well,
that
I
the
think
most appropriate way? I mean, I didn't hurt
no.
anybody. I didn't hurt
Right.
myself. But I just did some yelling, some
But you
screaming.
look at, I'll give you the example yesterday, and I think it's this, primal release, we'll call it, right?
Yes.
There's this level of release that needs to take place because you're holding things in your body. Likely, it was not the event where it came out in, right? It was a buildup of
No, it's a
other
culmin that's
events.
why I said
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it snuck
Yeah.
up on me because it was a culmination of everything. And again, hindsight's 2020, but in the moment, I'm like, I can't take another thing. And, my mother actually pointed this out to me because she was a leader for years in the political space. And, in terms of being politically correct and even in our positions, like I can't behave like that at work, nor would I, right? But I think people have, and it's because they don't it sneaks up on them. And then it's like the straw that broke the camel's back and they flip the
Yes.
fuck out. But my
And there's
mom was
also
talking to
this
me.
level of safety in the home that you feel like you can act that way, right? Especially you take the example of a toddler, right? I
Yes,
mean,
that was generally what my behavior looked like, I would say. I would
like how
say,
Bodhi reacted yesterday when I told him he couldn't play with the rice cooker.
yeah, it's
Full
irrational,
flat,
full blown.
flat on the ground, screaming.
If I could have done that and knock on her, I might have done that, but I feel like there would have been an
Uh,
injury if I flopped on the ground. Um, but my mom had told me that, like, when you're the leader, right, you don't always get to express your emotions about certain things, about changes, about staffing stuff. Like, a lot of times we're holding it because it's not appropriate for us to say, I'm hurt by this. I feel disappointed. I feel manipulated. I feel taken advantage of. Um, I feel regret or shame about my decision because I fucked up. Like there, there's certain things that like you're not going to say. It's just not appropriate.
yes.
So
And
you're
I think,
in stuffing. It's not good, which is why you need mentors and which is why you need a team. But sometimes things are happening so quickly in your place in your business that you don't have time to even acknowledge what's happening emotionally. That's how what I feel like happened for me.
yes. And I think that for me, when I'm in that place, because there has been many a times where I felt I wanted to say to the person across from me, You don't realize that I'm holding X, Y, and Z." And what I realized about that was there was I don't know, there was some level of ego in that, I wanna say, because if I had
Definitely.
said that, it wouldn't have impacted the other person at all. So what I really became clear about in the years that I've been working and building my career and rising the ranks in different positions is, what am I saying to win over that person to help them understand that I also suffer? Or where am I exposing some of my vulnerabilities to help build them? Right? Because if I'm looking for validation from the person across from me, typically in the employee setting, especially as their boss, never going to happen. They are always going to look at this divide between leadership and mid-level management, right? There's always going to be that sector and or that spacer. And I think that for me, I have really tried to get dialed in on how much I do share and where I share it. And that being said, if I go, long runs of being out of my window of tolerance or feeling dysregulated in the workplace or feeling like I'm not, you know, taking care of myself to feel more grounded in those positions, it becomes this level of woe is me, right? I'm carrying all the weight. I'm carrying all the stress. No one understands what it's like to be me. And it's not that I'm saying that out loud, but it's
But you're
coming
you're
out that
building the
way in my
resentment.
actions.
Yeah.
Totally.
You're building the resentment.
Totally.
And
And it can
so
happen in the home too. I'm doing X, Y, and Z. I mean, I caught myself the other day. I was like, I clean this house all the time. And my husband looked at me and he's like, "It's just simply not true." And I I was wrong, right? I was saying it because I was frustrated about the level of things I needed to do. And so I get into that all or nothing thinking where I say, well, I'm doing all of this, right? And that again is me acting out of that window of tolerance and saying things that feel based in reality, but are not based in reality, right? It may feel
No.
comforting for me in that moment, but it's not necessarily what is the truth.
Well, it's just like how trauma is with people. Like, I mean, a trauma response is essentially you're either in the past or in the future. You're not in the
Right.
present moment anymore. And
Right.
that is then painting your reality of how you're reacting to everything. I mean, the word
Hmm.
trigger is so overused right now.
Oh,
I'm so sick of it. But like if you're activated, if you're emotionally activated by something, that means that it's pressing on some nerve somewhere. And I think that
hmm.
like I had just reached my boiling point, and I think part of the aha moment this week or after I kinda had the release that I guess I needed is that, you know, I don't know I don't know if I could have done anything differently to prevent this, to be honest with you. I think it was like a culmination of external events that I had no control over. Um And it's one of those things where, like, in hindsight, I could say, "Oh, I could take better care of myself," but it's like, I wasn't not taking care of myself. I remember saying to my husband at one point during all of this is that I said, "Listen, these next 2 weeks, I'm carrying more on my plate than I want to be.
Hmm.
It's just how it is, and so I'm gonna need some protected time more than usual for work," which meant
Hmm.
that there were some mornings I was working at 5 in the morning. There were some evenings that I was working at 8 o'clock at night. And there were
Hmm.
some weekends that I had to protect some time to work. That is not, I think that's how people think I operate just normally, but that's not my norm. That's definitely more, that's me taking time away from family and being present to have to work. But
Yes.
there were certain, I had to take on, I absorbed this other role. Um, And I told him, like, I need to just focus on eating good food, making sure I stick with my workouts, and getting enough sleep, which meant like getting in bed early some nights. And that's the other thing. Like, I slept 9 hours twice this weekend, and I feel like I just needed to, like, I feel normal again this week.
Well,
Everything feels manageable
I think
today.
it's also recognizing where your deficits are and where the things are that really help give you relief, right? And I, a lot of the time, it just can't all be done. And I think what happens is we get into this spiral where then you're not giving yourself grace, you're letting things build up, you're not giving yourself any sort of time to say, okay, I can do this, but I can't do that, right? And being able to level set with yourself. Half the battle is reconciling with me, right?
Yes,
Half
because
the battle is reconciling with my expectations and what I believe needs to get done.
half
I
the
am
people don't even know what my expectations are because you know what? Nobody holds me accountable to anything. It's me
mm,
versus me all the time. When you leave an agency or corporate job and you open your own business, the boundaries are gone. Nobody's telling you when and how to work. So like it's up to me to tell me when to work, when to stop working, what's on my agenda, what I have to get done like and I think sometimes what I've noticed and what's come out of this is that there are things on my calendar that don't need to be on my calendar.
mhm.
I'm
What else has come out of
slashing,
it?
slashing and burning my fucking calendar. Um, I think I honestly don't know what else I could have done differently because I feel like I was communicating with people about how I was feeling. I wasn't confused about how I was feeling
Mm,
about all these circumstances, and I was
mhm.
communicating about it. It seems like maybe I need to do some more, like, maybe somatic work around it. Like, there would needed to be, like, some breath work or some sort of, like, release. I don't know. When I did that Reiki, something shifted, like, very
You know,
uh
I'll never forget this really profound presentation I went to early on in my career, and it was Tim Weber, who owns Adventure Recovery, and they're a fabulous organization, and they do a lot of work in nature with people in recovery in the behavioral health space, and I think they've like expanded, so they reach people in different states now. It used to be primarily based in Connecticut. And what I really what really stood out to me in this presentation was he got up on stage and he said, I can guarantee essentially that majority of this room forgets to breathe.
Yes, like, I'm telling you that the breath stuff probably has more impact. There's a book by James Nestor, it's called Breath. That book was transformative to me.
But even at
I'm
night,
somebody
I
who
mean,
forgets to breathe. I am
yes,
somebody who I will hold my breath.
and I'll find myself at night making sure even just 5 deep breaths, right? Just and first of all, I didn't even know how to breathe, okay? That's number 1. And what is really interesting about this is
Mhm.
that when a baby is born and up until I don't know when it actually shifts, but as a baby develops, they only know how to belly breathe, which is the way to get full oxygen in and out of your body, right? And so what happens is that when you breathe, typically you breathe from your chest when you take a
Yes.
deep breath. But the idea of any sort of breath work or any sort of, breathing to help regulate your nervous system is that you expand your belly and then your chest comes out, right? And so it offers such an, additional layer of really taking everything in and then again
Well,
blowing out.
it activates your nervous system to be able to get back into your window of tolerance, and also it activates your vagus nerve,
Mhm.
which is responsible for that parasympathetic nervous system reaction, which calms you
Yes.
down, right? So, again, things I tell my clients I need to be reminding myself of, because I do breathing exercises where I'm having people put their hand on their
Yeah.
belly, their
Heart
hand on
and
their
in their
chest, right? And
stomach.
so,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I do this in session with people. I teach people about the
Yes.
window of tolerance. It's just one of those
Yes.
moments where, like, I are you doing what you're teaching other people? Because this is my one of my biggest values and one of my biggest, like, soapbox things with clinicians, because I feel like there's a lot in the behavioral health space, and I've said it here before, who they don't take care of themselves. They don't take care of themselves, and so then if you're scattered and I'm not saying that you have to be healed in every way and you have to be perfect, but, like, you have to know when you're in these moments right outside your window, or you have to know how to get yourself back there.
Mhm.
And I think that some people don't even recognize that they're outside of it and that they're not functioning well. I think that there's a lack of awareness a little bit with some mental health providers of, like, yeah, I'm on a slippery slope here.
Yeah, so I think a really good way to, kind of provide, the listener some takeaways. What are 3 things we do to bring ourselves back to that level ground? For me, I would say connecting in some level of nature or even the ground, essentially.
Like
Like, I will
barefoot in the
take my
ground.
shoes
Yes.
off and put my feet in the grass,
Mhm.
I think is very helpful. Another way that I am able to come back to, uh, a little bit more of a level place is breathing while meditating, and it can be a very simple mantra for me. I mean, I'll give you a tangible takeaway in that what I do is I just say, "Breathe in love, breathe out fear." I mean, pretty simple because what I'm trying to remind myself is that I don't have the control anyway to begin with.
Mhm.
And then another one, I mean, I have so many now, but I think another one that really helps me become more present is sitting at eye level with my children without technology around. And really what that offers me is looking through their eyes. What is everything that they're seeing, right? And observing them and observing their presence and observing their breath and observing their, quiet moments. Because in that stillness for me, or in that playful moment for me, what I realize is that I don't have control over that, right? They're having their experience and I'm an observer, right? So it just helps me to zoom out and really become more present in where I am. Obviously, if you
Um,
don't have children, you can do that in a variety of other ways, but for me, that's been a really nice shift and something that I didn't think would come out of being a mom.
For me, I think it's putting the phone away. Putting the phone away to be present with my family for sure, whether that's, like, my husband or my kids. I'm in a different phase of life, so it's, like, a lot of sports activities or rushing this to this and that, so it's, like, in those moments where I have time with them,
Mhm.
making sure my phone's away, um, making sure to connect with them. Honestly, this last time, what I noticed is like the food stuff, nutrition is like a big one. And I
Mm,
think those basic things, I'll just wrap this into one. So food, sleep, and movement. Those three things I feel like are the things that usually go out the window when people are stressed
yep.
or overwhelmed or, overstimulated, everything. I don't have time for it. I hear that more than anything with like why they
Mhm.
can't eat healthy, why people can't exercise, why people don't get enough sleep. But those are the things. Sleep is a superpower. If you are under an immense amount of stress and you're not getting enough sleep, like life is just gonna be more stressful. Um, so
And
I feel like
dangerous. And
yeah.
dangerous. I
And
just
and
had it.
so the
Yeah.
food thing, I just wasn't I knew when I like took a step back when after that moment, it was like me after that flip out, it was me taking a
Mhm.
step back, like, okay, what do I need to do to like get my head above water right now? And again, we're not talking about like I'm having a mental health crisis and
Mhm.
I need to be hospitalized. Okay, this is not what we're talking about. We're talking about like I'm at that hyper arousal state. I flip out. I'm not that's scary to me because that first of all, that's how I used to live before I got sober.
Totally.
Like I'm smashing and grabbing, I'm flipping out, I'm screaming in your face. I'm always reacting.
Mhm.
So like now that's very jarring for me to behave like that because I can't tell you the last time that I behave like that. Like, that's just not I don't allow myself to get because I can notice when I'm getting higher so, I
Well, it's
I
everything we
think
tell our families. I think that that's a really good, everything we tell our clients, we tell the families that we work with is how are we going to move your nervous system into being proactive rather than reactive?
yeah,
And so
so
everything that we just named are the things that we do to become proactive. And we still fall very short.
well, it's just you're human at the end of the day, but what I notice is, like, I'm eating more ice cream, I'm eating more candy, I'm eating more and it's like, yeah, because just like somebody who is a normal drinker, I'm not speaking about alcoholics, but, like, it's easy to, like, have the extra glass of wine, have the
Mhm.
extra, participate in these extracurricular activities because you're trying to self-soothe. That's what all of this is. When you're outside of your window of tolerance, you're trying to self-soothe and get yourself back to your baseline.
Mhm.
Um, but I realize that, like, it's counterintuitive, just like drinking more alcohol or yeah, it might feel good in the moment, but, like, the next day, it's not gonna feel good.
Of course not.
So I had to, like, get back to basics with that, and it's like it's literally been, like, a few days, and I feel like a new person. I don't know what to say. It's like and that's what being healthy is like when you're outside of that window or getting close to that window, how do you bring yourself back? How do you bring your it's always about returning back to self. I feel like that's what it is. And as a leader and as a mother and as all these roles that I have in my life, I have to be even keeled. I can't be reacting to stuff
All the
um eh,
time.
all the time cuz I have to make decisions sometimes and you do too, right? In the
Mhm.
moment. We have to make
Yes.
we there's some decisions we can't sit on and wait on. That we
Mhm.
have to be reactive in terms of, like, decision making. I have to be in a good emotional state to be able to make sound decisions.
And I will say one thing that we left off that we didn't talk about, and then we'll get to the permission slip, is that be careful at this age with your caffeine intake after 12 o'clock. Okay? Because what happened last week for me really threw me for a loop. I had a extremely nice dinner with friends, our, our lovely, childcare. It was her birthday, my husband, celebratory, right? I drank half of a Mexican Coca-Cola, which is my favorite, in the glass bottle, but only drank half, which likely, guys, I'm not kidding you, was 3 sips, okay? It was not a lot. This was roughly at 7 PM. I was up till 1 in the morning. So, in
I
case
don't know if that's
you are
age. I think that's just in general, like, you can't be
what
drinking
do you mean? I used to be able to slam Red Bulls at, like,
probably
7
because your
PM and go
nervous
to sleep at
system was
9.
was all
Yeah,
over the
totally.
place. That's
Probably because
probably
I needed
because
Adderall.
yeah, probably because you were unwell. Unwell.
Listen, so there is yeah. I feel like my nervous system is much more regulated today, and any little bit of caffeine is gonna really throw me for one. So and I wanted to do it again over the weekend, but I didn't. I have 1 left in my fridge. It's calling my name.
I'm not the one to talk about caffeine because let me tell you, I quit nicotine. My caffeine intake is all the way up right now, as Fat Joe would say. All the way up. All day.
What's what's our permission slip today?
I think it's your turn for a permission slip.
Okay. Our permission slip for today, my permission slip for today is name the 3 things that help you to feel more grounded. You know, speak them into existence, talk to your friends about it, bring it up in conversation. If you feel someone kind of going off the rails that you're talking to, or your friend who feels stressed, or that they can't catch up, or everything feels overwhelming, or they can't catch a break from their children, pause the conversation, right? It's an ability to redirect people. What are the 3 things that you're doing to keep you grounded? What are the 3 things that are gonna give you a little bit more peace in this moment? And I'm not talking about the materialistic things. I'm not talking about, going shopping, buying a new bag. I mean, we all know those things are fun. I'm talking about the real soul level things that are going
Mhm.
to change the vibration in your body, right? So, call your friends out, guys. I mean, that's what I say. If there's the ability to do it and you have enough courage and vulnerability and trust between you and the people around you, they will appreciate it. I mean, Jill regularly does that with me. I regularly do it with her. And it's an accountability factor that really will catapult how you show up in life. So that's my permission slip. Name the 3 things, start acting on them.
And let's all hope that you don't have to have a little mentee bee
Yeah.
to knock you back into reality. But sometimes that's what it takes.
Sometimes you'll have to do that. So feel free to tell us about yours. Until
All
next
right.
time, see you next week.
Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at No Permission Necessary. And please download the episodes and share with your friends. It all helps us out.